The goal of this regime was to annihilate the Baha'i community. And had it not been for the international pressure that was brought to bear, it would have happened. We would have had another Holocaust.
This is Faith Complex, a dialogue about the entanglement of religion, politics and art.
Hello, my name is Jacques Berlinerblau of Georgetown University, and you're watching Faith Complex. Joining us today is Ms. Sovaida Ewing. She is author of Collective Security Within Reach, and she is a lawyer and a representative of the Baha'i community right here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to Faith Complex.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we hear a lot about Judaism, we hear a lot about Christianity, and we hear a lot about Islam, but very little about the Baha'i faith. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. The Baha'i faith is an independent world religion. It is the latest in a successive series of independent world religions that include Judaism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, etc. The reason we don't hear about it so much is that it is the youngest and the newest of these religions.
When were you guys born, as it were?
Only 165 years ago, in 1844, in the country of Iran.
So the lifeblood of the Baha'i faith would be conversion. People convert to the Baha'i faith. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Especially given that one of the fundamental tenets of the Baha'i faith is that each individual should investigate the truth for themselves in an unfettered and unprejudiced manner. In other words, not to blindly follow the religions of our ancestors.
Do you have clergy, imams, rabbis, or something similar to that?
No, we don't. There are no clergy in the Baha'i faith. Again, authorities vested in elected institutions. Even as I sit here today, I am simply a Baha'i who has her own views and her own understanding of the Baha'i faith. So I do not speak with any authority as such. Everything is filtered through my own humble understanding.
So the Baha'i faith has made the news in a very regrettable manner recently. There apparently is a trial going on in Iran. Tell us about the trial.
On January 12th of this year, a trial began in Iran of 7 leaders of the Baha'i community in Iran. They had been arrested, most of them, 6 of the 7 were arrested in May of 2008 and the other one in March. And they have been accused of the usual trumped-up charges that are leveled against the Bahais, unfortunately, in Iran, including espionage and corruption on earth, which is a favorite phrase that is used by the current Iranian regime against anyone they perceive as a threat.
Have they been associated with Israel and the United States in the accusations, which is also a leitmotif in Iranian jurisprudence?
Yes, they have. This time around, they've been associated with Israel and the United States. This is one of the favorite charges that the Iranian regimes since the 1930s have liked to level against the Baha'is. We've been accused of being agents of Russian imperialism. We've been accused of being agents of British colonialism, of American expansionism, and of Zionism. So we must be a very clever lot of people.
And there's no truth to any of those
And there
claims.
is absolutely no truth. We've never been associated with any of these movements or causes, and there's not a shred of evidence to support any of these charges.
Now, is this a legal process in any discernible, comprehensible sense of the term, or is it an absolute sham trial as far as
It's a complete sham trial. There has been no due process. In fact, the 7 have not even been allowed to meet with their attorneys. Their lead attorney is Shireen Ebadi, who is the Nobel Peace Laureate. She's out of the country, in fact. She can't even go back. The other members of her center who were appointed as attorneys for the 7 accused have not been allowed to meet with them. They were going to not be allowed into court on January 12th. They tried to get in, and at first they were refused entrance and finally managed to talk their way in. They haven't had adequate time to prepare, and from what they have been given, they haven't been allowed to see the files. They say there's not a shred of evidence to support any of these trumped-up charges.
Now, the Islamic Republic of Iran, as we know, is bedeviled by many demons, by many ghosts. What do you think is motivating them in this particular trial to pick these particular 7 people and put them through this ordeal?
Well, two things. The Iranian government right now clearly needs scapegoats to divert attention from the problems that they themselves are responsible for creating in the country. The Bahais, unfortunately, have been historically scapegoats in Iran.
Under the Shah, was there also persecution of the Bahais?
There was persecution of the Bahais, but it was not a systematic persecution, and it wasn't as grievous as it is now. So it was far more mild in tenor, and it came and went. The kind of persecution we've seen since 1979 has included imprisonment of Bahais. We have had Bahais executed and killed for their faith. The persecution really is aimed at eradicating the Baha'i community in Iran. In fact, in 1993, the special representative of the then Human Rights Commission, Mr. Pohl, submitted a report to the United Nations Commission, and he had found a report, a memorandum, actually an official memorandum that was signed by Mr. Ali Khamenei, that stated very clearly, that demonstrated what the goals of the Iranian regime were, which was to really block and to suffocate the Baha'i community in Iran. Very interesting.
What are the principles of the Baha'i faith that you think most irritate the current Iranian government?
The equality of rights, privileges, and opportunities for men and women, to the extent that if you have a child and if you have two children and you have money only to educate one, and one is a boy and one is a girl, the Baha'i writings say you should focus on educating the girl child because she is going to be the mother of the future generation and she must be well educated.
That is very unusual within the orbit of monotheism. That's a new one.
That is a new one. So that's one. Universal and compulsory education, coupled with the principle of unfettered investigation of truth, spiritual and otherwise, by the individual. The threat to the clergy in Iran is, Baha'u'llah says, no, one of the greatest gifts God has given us is the gift of the intellect and of understanding, and every human being can take the word of God, read it for himself or herself, and understand it.
Do you remember this op-ed piece in the New York Times that Mr. Cohen wrote about Jews in Iran, which really left a lot of people scratching their heads, that essentially there was tolerance and everything was fine and we should not overestimate the degree of persecution that they might be facing? And then came the elections, and then came the crackdown, and then came basically everything we knew that was possible, that could occur in the Islamic Republic occurred. Do you think there is religious freedom for minorities in present-day Iran?
Definitely not. The Baha'i community is the largest religious minority in Iran. They're about a 300,000 strong community, and they're not even officially recognized. There are many laws and administrative regulations that both directly and indirectly discriminate against the Baha'is in Iran.
Now, we don't want to tar the entire Iranian people, which is, I repeat, are good people. So who are the Iranians that help the Baha'is out? Where do we find them? Who are the heroic ones, or the righteous Iranians that come here?
There are wonderful, wonderful people amongst the Persians, amongst the Iranians. They're to be found everywhere at all levels of society. And recently, what's been wonderful and gratifying, at least for me as an individual, is to see that more of them are willing to speak out openly and to reveal their true feelings about the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran. In fact, on September 11th of this year, we had an event, I don't know if you were aware of it, at George Washington University here in Washington, D.C.
We certainly weren't aware of it.
You weren't aware of it, and of course not. And it was organized by the Baha'i community of D.C., and we had a famous Iranian actress. She played in a movie, she's a Hollywood actress, Shohreh Aghdashalu, and we had Azar Nafisi, who is also the famous author of Reading Lolita in Tehran, and they both spoke out very vocally against the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran. And it was you know, the hairs really stood on my arms when I heard Azar Nafisi say, you know, if being a Baha'i means following these admirable principles, then I am a Baha'i, I am a Jew, I am a Christian. And of course, she started off by saying that by faith, she herself is a Muslim. And really a recognition that we're all one, and we're all inspired by the same source and for the same purpose.
Do you work with the State Department? Are you working with any Middle Eastern diplomats? What lines of of pressure and influence are you using to?
There are many lines of pressure and influence, both in this country and around the world. So yes, we have our National Spiritual Assembly, which is the national governing bodies of the Bahais in the U.S. We also work through Congress. Resolutions are passed both in the House of Representatives and the Senate, decrying the persecution of the Bahais in Iran. Lately, there were a couple of resolutions passed by each of the two houses. We work through the United Nations. We work in all countries around the world in the same manner as we do here through the State Department to again bring to the attention of the governments everywhere the plight of the Baha'is. And it has helped because the goal of this regime was to annihilate the Baha'i community. And had it not been for the international pressure that was brought to bear, it would have happened. We would have had another Holocaust in some sense.
Sovaida Ma'ani Ewing, we wish you the best as you continue to observe and do your best to bring these people to justice or out of that system of justice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for appearing on Faith Complex today.
Thank you very much. The names of the 7 are, and I'm going to read them if you'll excuse me, are Behruz Tawakkoli, Saeed Rezai, Fariba Kamalabadi, Vahid Tizfah, Jamaluddin Khanjani, Afif Naimi, and Mahvash Sabet.